Hey guys, tonight we're talking about the Great Kingdom of Kush. Part 1: Origins and Geography of Kush. In the shadow of ancient Egypt's towering pyramids and monumental temples lies the story of another great civilization, one that thrived for more than 1,000 years and rivaled Egypt in power, wealth, and culture. This is the story of the Kingdom of Kush, an African empire that rose along the fertile banks of the Nile in what is today Sudan. While Egypt's fame has long overshadowed its southern neighbor, recent archaeological discoveries have revealed that Kush was not merely a copy of Egyptian civilization, but a vibrant and independent culture with its own traditions, innovations, and contributions to history. The Kushites built their own pyramids, smaller and steeper than those of Giza, developed a unique writing system, and even conquered and ruled Egypt as the 25th dynasty. To truly appreciate the greatness of Kush, we must start at the beginning, the land that gave birth to this powerful kingdom and the people who built it. The geography of Nubia, the Kingdom of Kush, was located in the region historically known as Nubia, which stretches along the Nile River between Aswan in southern Egypt and Khartoum in modern Sudan. This area was divided into two parts: Lower Nubia, the northern section, closest to Egypt, which included rich mining areas and served as a trade corridor. Upper Nubia, the southern section, where the kingdom's major cities, such as Napata and Meroë, eventually flourished. Unlike the flat, fertile floodplains of northern Egypt, Nubia is marked by rugged terrain, narrow valleys, and rocky cataracts areas, where the Nile tumbles over granite boulders. These natural features provided both challenges and advantages. While they limited navigation, they also acted as natural fortifications, protecting Nubian kingdoms from invasion. Natural resources and wealth. One of Nubia's greatest assets was its abundance of natural resources. The region was rich in gold. Nubia was famous for its gold mines, which supplied Egypt and other ancient states with precious metal for jewelry, temples, and trade. Ivory and ebony. The land's connection to sub-Saharan Africa brought valuable materials like elephant ivory and dark, dense ebony wood. Stone. Sandstone and granite were quarried for building monuments and temples. Iron ore. In later centuries, particularly during the Meroitic period, Kush became a major center for iron smelting and weapon making. These resources helped the Kingdom of Kush become a major trading hub between Africa and the Mediterranean world. The origins of Nubian civilization. Long before the rise of the Kushite kings, the Nile Valley in Nubia was home to thriving communities. Archaeological evidence suggests that Nubian cultures, such as the A group and C group, were already skilled in agriculture, animal husbandry, and trade. The people of Nubia domesticated cattle, grew millet and sorghum, and traded with Egypt and other regions. Artifacts such as pottery, jewelry, and tools reveal that these early cultures were both sophisticated and connected to larger trade networks. Egypt and Nubia. Early contacts. From the earliest days of the Egyptian pharaohs, Nubia played a critical role in Egypt's development. Egypt coveted Nubia's gold, ivory, and exotic goods, and the Nile's southern reaches were a vital trade route connecting Africa with the Middle East. By the time of Egypt's Old Kingdom, Egyptian traders and armies were venturing into Nubia. Some early Egyptian texts and inscriptions describe the land to the south as Tasseti, a reference to the Nubians' renowned skill with archery. In fact, Nubian archers were so respected that Egypt later employed them as mercenaries. The first kingdom of Kush, as Egypt's Middle Kingdom expanded, the Nubians began consolidating their own political power. This period saw the emergence of the Kingdom of Kush, centered around the city of Kerma. Kerma, the first capital Kerma, located near the third cataract of the Nile, was one of the earliest urban centers in sub-Saharan Africa. Excavations have revealed massive mud brick structures, including the Western Defufa, a large ceremonial building that may have served as a temple or palace. Kerma's rulers developed a centralized state, controlled trade routes, and amassed great wealth through the exchange of gold, cattle, and luxury goods. They also maintained a complex relationship with Egypt, sometimes trading peacefully, sometimes engaging in warfare. Conflict with Egypt viewed Kush as both a source of wealth and a threat. During Egypt's Middle and New Kingdom periods, Egyptian pharaohs launched military campaigns into Nubia to secure gold mines and trade routes. Around 1500 BCE, during the reign of Thutmose I, Egypt conquered much of Nubia, incorporating it into the Egyptian Empire. Kush was reduced to a colony, governed by Egyptian officials and heavily influenced by Egyptian religion, art, and architecture. The Egyptianization of Nubia. For nearly 500 years, Nubia was under Egyptian rule. Temples were built in honor of Egyptian gods like Ammon and Isis. Egyptian hieroglyphs were used in official inscriptions, and many Nubians adopted Egyptian customs. But beneath this Egyptian veneer, Nubian traditions persisted, blending with foreign influences to create a unique cultural identity. The rise of an independent Kush. By the 11th century BCE, Egypt itself was in decline. The fall of the New Kingdom left a power vacuum in Nubia. Taking advantage of Egypt's weakness, the Nubians reasserted their independence and established a new kingdom of Kush. This revived Kushite state was centered at Napata, near the sacred mountain Jebel Barkal. Here, the Kushites built temples dedicated to Ammon and other gods, and they developed a powerful monarchy that would soon rise to dominate the entire Nile Valley. The origins of the Kingdom of Kush lie in the fertile valleys and resource-rich lands of Nubia, a crossroads of trade and culture in Africa. Emerging from the shadow of Egypt's influence, the Kushites would eventually create their own powerful empire. Part 2. Society, Daily Life, and Culture of Kush, a glimpse into Kushite life. The Kingdom of Kush was more than a political power. It was a cultural melting pot, shaped by centuries of interaction with Egypt, sub-Saharan Africa, and the Mediterranean. From bustling markets along the Nile to royal courts filled with music and ceremony, Kushite life blended tradition with innovation. Understanding how the people of Kush lived, worked, and celebrated offers us a deeper appreciation of their world. Social structure in Kushite society was hierarchical but flexible, with power concentrated in the hands of the monarchy and religious elite. The king, at the top, was the king, known as the core. He was not just a political leader, but also a divine figure, believed to be chosen by the gods to rule. The king oversaw trade, military campaigns, and religious ceremonies, and his wealth was displayed in grand tombs and pyramids. The Kandake, one of the most remarkable features of Kushite society, was the prominent role of women in leadership. The Kandake could serve as queen regent, co-ruler, or even sovereign ruler in her own right. Some Kandakes led armies into battle and were remembered as fierce and intelligent rulers. The most famous was Amenarines, who resisted Roman invasions in the 1st century BC. Nobles and administrators beneath the royal family were nobles, who managed estates, collected taxes, and commanded armies. These elites lived in luxurious homes decorated with fine pottery, jewelry, and imported goods. Commoners, the majority of the population, were farmers, herders, and artisans. They lived in smaller villages, growing crops like millet, barley, and wheat along the fertile banks of the Nile. Fishermen and hunters also contributed to the local economy. Slaves, as in many ancient societies, slavery existed in Kush. Slaves were often captured during wars or obtained through trade, and they worked in households, fields, and workshops. Family and gender roles, family life was central to Kushite society. Archaeological evidence shows that households were multi-generational, with extended families living together. Women played a crucial role not only in domestic affairs, but also in religion, trade, and governance. Women's influence. Women could own property, inherit wealth, and act as priestesses. Tomb inscriptions and art often depict women as equals to men, dressed in elaborate garments and adorned with jewelry. The Kandake's power exemplifies the elevated status of royal women. Daily life and housing houses in villages. The homes of ordinary Kushites were simple mud brick structures with flat roofs, designed to keep interiors cool in the intense heat. Wealthier families had larger houses with courtyards and storage rooms. Villages were built near the Nile, where water was readily available for drinking, irrigation, and fishing. Streets were narrow and unpaved, but they bustled with life markets, workshops, and gatherings were common. Food and diet. The diet of the Kushites was based on locally grown crops and livestock, staple foods, millet, sorghum, wheat, and barley. Proteins, cattle, sheep, goats, and fish from the Nile. Fruits and vegetables, dates, figs, beans, and lentils. Luxury foods, honey, beer, and wine for special occasions. Cooking was done in clay ovens or over open fires, and meals were often accompanied by locally brewed beer. Art and craftsmanship. Kushite art reflects both African and Egyptian influences, but with a distinct style. Sculpture and pottery. The artisans of Kush excelled in sculpture, producing statues of kings, queens, and gods carved from sandstone or granite. These statues often feature rounded facial features, full lips, and almond-shaped eyes, reflecting the African heritage of the Kushites. Pottery ranged from simple household wares to intricately painted ceramics used for ceremonial purposes. Red and black polished pottery, known as kermaware, is particularly famous. Jewelry and metalwork, gold, abundant in Nubia, was used to create stunning jewelry, bracelets, rings, amulets, and necklaces. Kushite artisans also crafted weapons, tools, and decorative items from bronze and iron. Clothing and personal adornment. The hot climate of Kush influenced its clothing styles. Men typically wore linen kilts or tunics. Women wore long, flowing dresses made of linen or cotton, often dyed in bright colors. Both men and women adorned themselves with jewelry, including beaded necklaces, earrings, and armlets. Elaborate headdresses and wigs were also common among the elite, often decorated with gold and semi-precious stones. Music and entertainment. Music played an important role in both religious ceremonies and daily life. Archaeologists have found harps, lyres, drums, and flutes in Kushite tombs, suggesting a rich musical tradition. Entertainment included storytelling, dancing, and athletic competitions. Banquets were social highlights where guests feasted, drank beer or wine, and enjoyed music and dance performances. Religion and spirituality. Religion was at the heart of Kushite culture, blending local African traditions with Egyptian influences. Gods and beliefs. The Kushites worshipped a pantheon of gods, many of which overlapped with Egyptian deities. The most important was Amun, whose main temple was at Jebel Barkal. Other gods included Isis, goddess of magic and motherhood; Osiris, god of the afterlife; Apaknak, a lion-headed war god unique to Kush. Temples and rituals. Kushite temples were built in honor of these deities, often modeled after Egyptian designs but with local adaptations. Priests played a crucial role, conducting ceremonies, sacrifices, and divination. Death and burial customs. The Kushites believed in an afterlife, much like the Egyptians. However, their burial practices evolved over time. Pyramids of Kush. One of the most iconic features of Kushite culture is its pyramids. Unlike the massive pyramids of Giza, Kushite pyramids are smaller, with steep sides and narrow bases. Over 200 pyramids have been found at sites like Napata and Meroë, making Sudan home to more pyramids than Egypt. These pyramids served as royal tombs filled with offerings of food, jewelry, weapons, and personal belongings meant to accompany the dead in the afterlife. Tombs and frescoes. The interiors of tombs were often decorated with colorful frescoes depicting daily life, religious rituals, and scenes of the deceased's journey to the afterlife. Language and writing. The Kushites initially used Egyptian hieroglyphs for official inscriptions, but around the 3rd century BC, they developed their own script, the Meroitic alphabet. Meroitic writing, which includes both hieroglyphic and cursive forms, remains only partially deciphered today. While scholars can read the letters, the meaning of many words remains a mystery, adding to the enigmatic nature of the Kushite civilization. Trade and cultural connections. Trade was the lifeblood of Kushite society. Located at the crossroads of Africa and the Mediterranean, Kush controlled key routes for gold and precious stones, ivory and animal skins, exotic animals like giraffes and monkeys, iron tools and weapons. Caravans traveled across the desert, while ships sailed up and down the Nile, connecting Kush to Egypt, Arabia, and beyond. These exchanges brought not only wealth, but also cultural influences from Greek pottery to Roman glassware. The Kingdom of Kush was a dynamic and culturally rich society. Its people lived in thriving cities, traded across continents, and developed unique traditions in art, religion, and governance. Part 3. Kush and Egypt, Rivalry, Conquest, and the 25th Dynasty. A complex relationship for centuries. The history of Kush was deeply entwined with that of Egypt. The two civilizations shared the Nile, traded goods and ideas, and often exchanged cultural and religious practices. But their relationship was not always peaceful. At various times, Kush was Egypt's trading partner, military ally, rival, and even conqueror. The height of Kushite power came when its rulers not only liberated their lands from Egyptian dominance, but also marched north to take control of Egypt itself, founding the famous 25th dynasty, known as the Dynasty of the Black Pharaohs. The legacy of Egyptian rule. Before Kush's rise to power, Nubia had long been under Egyptian influence. As we saw in Part 1, during Egypt's new kingdom, much of Nubia was annexed and ruled by Egyptian viceroys. Egyptian temples were built, hieroglyphs were introduced, and Nubian elites adopted Egyptian customs. Yet, even under foreign rule, the Nubians preserved elements of their own traditions, especially in religion and burial customs. By the time Egypt's power declined after the New Kingdom, the Kushites were ready to reclaim their independence and assert their identity. The rise of Napata, around 1000 BCE, as Egypt entered its third intermediate period, a time of political fragmentation, the Kushites consolidated their power around the city of Napata, near Jebel Barkal, the sacred mountain which Egyptians believed was the home of the god, and became the spiritual and political heart of the Kingdom of Kush. The rulers of Napata saw themselves as heirs to both Nubian and Egyptian traditions. They built temples to Amun, adopted elements of Egyptian royal imagery, and performed ceremonies designed to connect them with the divine. The god Amun and Kushite kingship. A key factor in Kush's growing power was the cult of Amun, which had been introduced during the Egyptian occupation but took on new significance among the Kushites. The king of Kush was seen as the chosen one of Amun, and his legitimacy depended on the approval of the priests. The temple of Amun at Jebel Barkal became the most important religious site in Kush. Its influence was so great that it played a central role in the political and military expansion of the kingdom. Kush expands into Egypt by the 8th century BCE. Egypt was politically weak, divided among rival rulers in the north and south. The Kushite kings saw an opportunity to expand their power and reunify the Nile Valley under their rule. King Kashta was one of the first Kushite rulers to assert control over Upper Egypt. He extended his influence as far north as this, the great religious center of Amun, Rather than conquering Egypt outright, Kashta used diplomacy and religion to gain power. His daughter, Amenerdes, was appointed God's wife of Amun, a powerful priestess role that tied the Kushite royal family to Egypt's spiritual leadership. Pi the Conqueror, Kashta's successor, King Pi, took a more direct approach. Around 727 BCE, Pi launched a military campaign to bring all of Egypt under his control. His victory was so decisive that he left behind a detailed account known as the Victor Stela, carved with hieroglyphs in Napata. The stela describes how Pi defeated rival Egyptian rulers in the Delta and brought them to kneel before him. Pi's conquest marked the beginning of Kushite rule over Egypt, and he is often considered the first of the Black Pharaohs. The 25th Dynasty, the Black Pharaohs. Pi's victory established the 25th Dynasty, a line of Kushite kings who ruled over a united Nile Valley from Napata to the Mediterranean Sea. Shabaka, Pi's brother and successor Shabaka, consolidated Kushite control over Egypt. He restored temples, revived traditional religious practices, and portrayed himself as a restorer of the ancient Egyptian ways. Shabaka's reign marked a cultural renaissance, with new monuments built in both Egypt and Nubia. Shebitku maintained the dynasty's power while strengthening its defenses against emerging threats, particularly the Assyrian Empire, which was expanding across the Near East. Taharqa, perhaps the most famous of the Kushite kings, Taharqa was a warrior pharaoh and a patron of monumental architecture. He built temples and pyramids, expanded trade, and fought against the Assyrians to protect Egypt. The Bible mentions Taharqa as an ally of the Kingdom of Judah during the Assyrian siege of Jerusalem, highlighting the international significance of Kushite power during his reign. Tanutamen, the last ruler of the 25th dynasty, Tanutamen struggled to maintain control in the face of relentless Assyrian attacks. After a series of defeats, the Kushites were forced to retreat south to Napata, ending their rule over Egypt. Achievements of the 25th dynasty. The Kushite pharaohs left an indelible mark on Egypt. Their reign is remembered for cultural revival. They emphasized traditional Egyptian religion, restoring temples and reviving ancient art styles. Monumental construction. Pyramids and temples were built in both Nubia and Egypt, blending Egyptian and Kushite design elements. Religious devotion. The Kushite kings were devout worshippers of Amun, often depicted offering gifts to the gods. Military strength. Their campaigns extended Kushite influence across the Nile Valley, and they resisted some of the greatest empires of the ancient world. Kush after Egypt. Although the Kushites lost control of Egypt by 653 BCE, they did not fade into obscurity. Instead, they returned to Napata and continued to flourish as a powerful kingdom. Napata and the Southern Kingdom. From Napata, the Kushite kings continued to rule their homeland, maintaining their pyramids, temples, and trade networks. Their cultural connection to Egypt remained strong, but they also began to develop a more distinctly African identity. Continued rivalries, even after their withdrawal from Egypt. The Kushites occasionally clashed with foreign powers, including the Assyrians and later the Persians. Despite these challenges, they maintained their independence for centuries. The importance of the Black Pharaohs. The rule of the 25th dynasty is a unique chapter in world history, as it demonstrates the fluidity of cultural and political boundaries in the ancient world. The Kushites were not outsiders to Egyptian culture. They had long been part of the Nile Valley's shared traditions. Yet their reign also highlights the strength and resilience of African civilizations. The Kushite pharaohs were not simply imitators of Egypt. They revitalized Egyptian culture at a time when it was in decline, and they brought their own traditions and perspectives to the throne. Archaeological evidence of Kushite rule. Modern excavations have uncovered numerous sites that illustrate the grandeur of the Kushite pharaohs. Pyramids at El Kuru and Nuri. These royal cemeteries contain the tombs of Pi, Taharqa, and other 25th dynasty rulers. Temples at Jebel Barkal. The sacred mountain remains a key site for understanding the religious life of the Kushite kings. Victory Stela of Pi. This inscription, preserved in the Cairo Museum, offers a rare first-hand account of ancient military conquests. The conquest of Egypt and the reign of the 25th dynasty represent the golden age of the Kingdom of Kush. During this time, the Kushites proved themselves as skilled rulers, builders, and warriors, leaving a legacy that bridged African and Mediterranean worlds. Part 4. The Golden Age of Kush, Meroë and the Iron Kingdom. The shift to Meroë. After the Kushite rulers of the 25th dynasty retreated from Egypt in the mid-7th century BCE, their focus turned inward toward strengthening their southern territories. Around 590 BCE, during the reign of King Isbelta, the capital of Kush shifted from Napata to Meroë, farther south along the Nile. The decision to move the capital was strategic. Meroë's location was less vulnerable to foreign invasions from Egypt or the Mediterranean. The region was rich in iron ore, which became the backbone of Kushite industry. Its fertile lands and proximity to trade routes with sub-Saharan Africa, Arabia, and India ensured economic prosperity. Meroë, the iron metropolis. Meroë emerged as one of the greatest cities of the ancient African world. It was a hub of politics, religion, industry, and trade. The industrial powerhouse, archaeologists have discovered massive mounds of slag and the remains of furnaces around Meroë, indicating large-scale iron smelting. The city may have been one of the most advanced centers of iron production in the ancient world. Iron tools revolutionized agriculture, while iron weapons strengthened Kush's military power. This technological edge allowed Meroë to dominate regional trade and expand its influence. Urban life. Meroë was a vibrant city, home to palaces and administrative buildings, temples dedicated to Amen, Epidmek, and other gods, residential neighborhoods with mud brick houses, workshops producing pottery, textiles, jewelry, and iron goods. The streets of Meroë would have been filled with traders, artisans, priests, and visiting merchants from across Africa and the Mediterranean. The Kandaks of Meroë. One of the defining features of the Meroitic period was the powerful role of Kandaks. These women were not merely ceremonial figures. They often ruled as sovereign monarchs, commanded armies, and negotiated with foreign powers. Queen Amenorinas. Amenorinas is one of the most famous Kandaks, celebrated for her resistance against the Roman Empire. When Rome annexed Egypt in 30 BCE, tensions with Kush escalated. Amenorinas led a campaign against the Romans, even capturing the Egyptian city of Syene. Though Rome retaliated, the Kushites negotiated a favorable peace treaty, maintaining their independence and ensuring that Meroë remained a powerful state. Queen Amenishiketo, another renowned Kandak. Amenishiketo left behind treasures that demonstrate the wealth and artistry of the Meroitic period. Her jewelry, weapons, and artifacts reflect both African traditions and Mediterranean influences. Art and architecture of Meroë. The Meroitic era produced a distinctive artistic style that blended Egyptian, African, and Greco-Roman elements. The pyramids of Meroë. Meroë's royal cemeteries are home to over 200 pyramids, more than twice the number found in Egypt. These pyramids, with their steep angles and small bases, served as tombs for kings, queens, and nobles. Inside the tombs, walls were decorated with colorful reliefs depicting the deceased with gods, hunting scenes, and offerings. Temples and palaces. Temples in Meroë were often dedicated to Amen and Epedmek, the lion-headed warrior god unique to Kush. The temple of Epedmek at Meroë Issaphra is especially famous for its intricate carvings of lions, elephants, and ceremonial scenes. Religion and the lion god. While Egyptian gods remained important, the Meroitic period saw a stronger emphasis on local deities, particularly Epidmak. This lion-headed god represented strength, war, and protection, reflecting the martial spirit of Kushite rulers. Religious ceremonies included offerings, music, and animal sacrifices. Temples served as centers of learning, wealth, and political influence. The Meroitic language and writing around the 3rd century BCE, the Kushites developed their own script, the Meroitic alphabet, to replace Egyptian hieroglyphs. This script included both hieroglyphic and cursive forms, used for monumental inscriptions and everyday writing, respectively. Although scholars have deciphered the phonetic values of the Meroitic letters, the language itself remains only partially understood. This linguistic mystery adds to the intrigue of Kush's history. Trade and diplomacy, Meroë was perfectly situated for long-distance trade. The city acted as a bridge between sub-Saharan Africa and the Mediterranean world. Trade goods, exports, gold, ivory, animal skins, exotic animals, iron tools, and pottery. Imports, wine, olive oil, luxury goods, and Mediterranean art. Caravans traveled along desert routes, while ships sailed up and down the Nile. Meroë's connections extended as far as India and China via the Red Sea trade networks. Foreign relations. Kush maintained complex relationships with neighboring powers, Egypt and Rome, alternating between conflict and trade. Aksum, a rival power that would later challenge Kush, Arabia and the Indian Ocean trade, partners in the exchange of spices, textiles, and luxury items. Daily life in Meroë. The wealth of Meroë trickled down through society, influencing how people lived and worked. Farmers and herders, agriculture remained the backbone of the economy, with farmers growing sorghum, wheat, and barley. Irrigation systems and iron tools improved crop yields. Cattle were a sign of wealth, and herding was a respected occupation. Meroitic artisans were highly skilled, producing everything from finely crafted ceramics to elaborate gold jewelry. Iron smelters, blacksmiths, and weavers thrived in the bustling city. Merchants and markets. The markets of Meroë were vibrant places where goods from across Africa and beyond were traded. Spices, perfumes, fabrics, and exotic animals were common sights. The height of Meroitic power, from the 3rd century BCE to the 3rd century CE, Meroë reached its peak. Its rulers controlled vast territories. Its economy boomed thanks to trade and iron production, and its culture flourished in art, architecture, and religion. Monumental building projects, kings and khandates built magnificent temples and pyramids, leaving behind a legacy of stone structures that still stand today. Military strength, armed with iron weapons, the Kushite armies were formidable. Archers, known for their deadly accuracy, were especially feared. Kushite archers had been legendary since Egyptian times, earning Nubia the title Land of the Bow. The Roman encounter, after Rome annexed Egypt in 30 BCE, it inevitably came into contact with Kush. Relations alternated between trade and conflict. The Kushite attack on Aswan. Queen Amenarina's launched a bold attack on Roman-controlled Egypt, capturing the city of Aswan and taking statues of Emperor Augustus as war trophies. The Romans responded with a counteroffensive led by General Petronius, but the Kushites proved resilient. Eventually, a peace treaty was signed around 20 BCE, allowing Kush to remain independent while engaging in trade with Rome. Legacy of Meroë's Golden Age. The Meroitic period stands as a testament to the creativity and strength of the Kushite people. During this golden age, Kush developed a unique identity that blended African traditions with the influences of the Mediterranean world. Cultural independence. The creation of the Meroitic script and emphasis on local gods signaled a break from Egyptian dominance. Economic prosperity. Iron smelting, agriculture, and trade brought wealth to the kingdom. Political power, strong rulers, including the khandates, maintained Kush's independence even against powerful empires like Rome. The city of Meroë and its surrounding kingdom represented the height of Kushite civilization, a thriving center of trade, culture, and technological innovation. But even golden ages did not last forever. Part 5. The Decline of Kush and the Rise of Aksum. The beginning of decline. The kingdom of Kush, especially during its Meroitic Golden Age, appeared to be invincible. Its rulers commanded vast wealth, controlled strategic trade routes, and developed a unique cultural identity that blended African and Mediterranean traditions. Yet by the 3rd century CE, the empire began to weaken. Decline rarely stems from a single cause. Instead, a combination of internal struggles and external pressures gradually eroded Kush's power. Changing trade routes, environmental stress, and the rise of ambitious rivals, particularly the kingdom of Aksum in modern-day Ethiopia, all contributed to the fall of this once great civilization. Shifts in trade routes. One of the greatest strengths of Kush had always been its role as a trading hub. For centuries, Meroë connected sub-Saharan Africa with the Mediterranean and the Middle East. Gold, ivory, iron, and exotic animals flowed north, while luxury goods like wine, glassware, and textiles came south. By the 2nd and 3rd centuries CE, however, trade patterns were shifting. The rise of Red Sea trade. Roman merchants increasingly preferred maritime trade routes via the Red Sea, bypassing the Nile and overland routes controlled by Kush. Ports like Bernice and Myos Hormos in Egypt flourished, diminishing Meroë's economic importance. Competition from Aksum, located in present-day Ethiopia and Eritrea. Aksum capitalized on these maritime routes. Its rulers forged strong trading connections with Rome, India, and Arabia, directly competing with Kushite commerce. With declining trade revenues, the wealth and political stability of Kush began to suffer. Environmental challenges. Archaeological studies suggest that environmental factors may have also contributed to Kush's decline. Deforestation. The intensive use of wood to fuel iron smelting furnaces around Meroë may have led to deforestation, soil erosion, and declining agricultural productivity. Climate change. Shifts in the flow of the Nile or regional rainfall patterns could have reduced crop yields, weakening the kingdom's food security. Desert encroachment. The expansion of desert conditions may have disrupted trade routes and settlement patterns. These environmental stresses would have placed additional strain on a kingdom already facing economic challenges. Internal struggles. The power of the Kushite monarchy, while formidable, depended on maintaining control over a vast and diverse territory. As the economy faltered, local leaders and rival factions may have grown restless. Evidence of political instability appears in the form of reduced monumental building projects during the later Meroitic period, fewer inscriptions and royal records, suggesting weakened centralized authority, possible revolts among vassal states or subject peoples. The rise of Aksum, the kingdom of Aksum, located to the southeast of Kush in the Ethiopian highlands, emerged as a formidable power during the 1st and 2nd centuries CE. Aksum's capital city, also called Aksum, was a thriving urban center known for its stone stele, monumental architecture, and advanced agricultural systems. Aksum's strategic position, Aksum's location, gave it direct access to the Red Sea, enabling it to dominate maritime trade with Rome, exporting ivory, gold, and exotic goods, India, trading spices, silk, and precious stones, Arabia, competing with South Arabian kingdoms like Saba and Himyar. Aksum's growing wealth and military power posed a direct threat to Kush, which relied on Nile-based trade. The Aksumite conquest by the 4th century CE, Aksum had become the dominant power in northeast Africa. The Aksumites, led by their powerful king Ezana, launched a series of campaigns to extend their influence. The fall of Meroë. Historical records and inscriptions suggest that Aksum conquered Meroë around 350 CE. A key inscription from King Ezana, found in modern Ethiopia, claims victory over the Noba, likely referring to the people of Kush. The fall of Meroë marked the end of the Kushite state as a major political power. While smaller Nubian kingdoms survived in the region, the centralized authority of Kush was gone. What happened to the Kushites? The people of Kush did not vanish. Instead, they adapted to changing circumstances, forming smaller, independent kingdoms such as Nabasha, Mercuria, Alodia. These medieval Nubian kingdoms, which arose after the decline of Kush, maintained elements of Meroitic culture while adopting Christianity in later centuries. Cultural continuity. Even after the fall of Kush, its cultural influence persisted. Architecture. The Nubian pyramids, temples, and artistic motifs continued to inspire local traditions. Language. Though the Meroitic script eventually disappeared, linguistic traces of the Kushite language may survive in modern Nubian languages. Royal symbols. The imagery of the Kandake and the lion god Apidmak remained part of regional identity. The role of Rome in Kush's decline. While Aksum was the direct conqueror of Meroë, Rome also played an indirect role in weakening Kush. Rome's control of Egypt disrupted traditional trade routes. Roman economic dominance of the Mediterranean meant that Kush had fewer opportunities for long-distance commerce. Roman alliances with Aksum may have tilted the balance of power in the region. Archaeological evidence of the late period. Excavations at Meroë and other sites provide important insights into the final centuries of Kush. Decline in monumental building. Temples and pyramids from the later period are smaller and less ornate. Changes in burial practices. Some royal burials show signs of hasty construction, suggesting political instability. Imported goods. The presence of Roman pottery and coins indicates continued trade, but in reduced volume compared to earlier times. The last Kandakes, the queens of Kush, once powerful rulers, appear less frequently in the historical record during the late Meroitic period. It is possible that the Kandake institution weakened as external threats grew and the kingdom's wealth declined. The broader context of African history. The fall of Kush must be understood within the broader history of Africa. During this period, Aksum rose as a major power, eventually adopting Christianity in the 4th century CE. Trade networks shifted from the Nile to the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. Other African civilizations, such as those in West Africa, were also flourishing. Kush's decline was part of a larger pattern of change as new centers of power emerged across the continent. Legacy of Kush in Aksumite culture. Interestingly, the Aksumites themselves may have absorbed aspects of Kushite culture after their conquest. Some Aksumite art and religious symbolism bear faint traces of Nubian influence. Aksum's own emphasis on monumental architecture may have been inspired by the grandeur of Meroë's pyramids and temples. The decline of the kingdom of Kush was not sudden but gradual, shaped by shifting trade routes, environmental stress, internal instability, and the rise of powerful neighbors like Aksum. By the mid-4th century CE, the once mighty kingdom had fallen, but its cultural and historical legacy endured. Part 6. The Legacy of Kush, Rediscovery and Modern Significance. The forgotten kingdom. For centuries after its decline, the kingdom of Kush slipped into obscurity. Ancient Egypt's grandeur, with its colossal pyramids and monumental temples, overshadowed the achievements of Nubia. Early historians, such as those of classical Greece and Rome, often misunderstood or downplayed the role of Kush in African and world history. Yet Kush was far from insignificant. Its rulers once dominated Egypt as the 25th dynasty, controlled vast trade networks, and developed unique cultural traditions that blended African heritage with Mediterranean influences. The rediscovery of this forgotten kingdom is a story of archaeology, scholarship, and modern pride. The rediscovery of Kush European explorers. The 19th century marked a turning point in the modern awareness of Kush. European explorers and travelers, journeying through Sudan and northern Africa, began to report the presence of mysterious pyramids, temples, and ruins far south of Egypt. One of the earliest explorers, Frédéric Cailliaud, a French mineralogist, visited Meroë in 1821 and documented the site's remarkable pyramids. His reports astonished scholars who had long believed that pyramid building was exclusive to Egypt. The work of archaeologists. Serious archaeological study of Kush began in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, with expeditions led by scholars such as George A. Reisner, an American archaeologist. Reisner's excavations at sites like Napata, El-Khorou, and Nuri uncovered royal pyramids, burial treasures, and inscriptions that shed light on the lives of the Kushite kings and queens. Today, ongoing excavations in Sudan continue to reveal new insights into Kushite culture, including its advanced iron industry, religious practices, and unique script. The Pyramids of Sudan. Sudan is home to more pyramids than Egypt, with over 200 pyramids scattered across sites such as Meroë, Nuri, and El-Khorou. These pyramids, though smaller and steeper than those at Giza, are remarkable in their own right. Royal cemeteries. The pyramids house the tombs of kings, queens, and nobles. Inside, archaeologists have found jewelry, pottery, weapons, and inscriptions. Distinct style. Kushite pyramids have unique architectural features, including chapel-like structures attached to their fronts, where offerings were made. Tourism and preservation. Today, these pyramids are recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Sites and are an important part of Sudan's cultural identity. The Meroitic script, a lingering mystery. One of the most tantalizing puzzles of Kushite history is the Meroitic script, which was developed around the 3rd century BCE. While scholars have deciphered the alphabet itself, the meaning of the language remains elusive because no bilingual Rosetta Stone has been found. The inability to fully understand Meroitic writing means that many details of Kushite history, religion, and society remain hidden. Cracking this linguistic code could provide extraordinary new insights into the kingdom's legacy. The global significance of Kush. Kush's history challenges old narratives that viewed Africa as a continent without advanced civilizations. Long before European contact, the Kushites built cities, pyramids, and temples. They traded across continents, and they developed their own writing systems, industries, and artistic traditions. The story of Kush also reminds us of the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations. The Black Pharaohs of the 25th Dynasty ruled Egypt and defended it against Assyrian invasion. Kushite trade reached as far as the Mediterranean, Arabia, and India. The kingdom's iron smelting techniques may have influenced technologies in other parts of Africa. Kush and modern Sudanese identity. In modern Sudan, the history of Kush is a source of national pride. The pyramids of Meroë appear on Sudanese currency, and the legacy of the Kandake's strong queens like Amenarina's and Amanishakheto has become a symbol of empowerment and resilience. Sudanese scholars and local communities are also working to preserve and promote the country's ancient heritage. Efforts include tourism development, initiatives to protect archaeological sites and attract visitors, cultural education, teaching school children about the importance of Kushite history, international partnerships, collaborations with universities and museums worldwide to study and preserve artifacts. Kush and the African diaspora. For people of African descent worldwide, the history of Kush provides a powerful counter-narrative to stereotypes of Africa as a dark continent. The kingdom stands as evidence of Africa's rich and complex history of state-building, innovation, and cultural achievement. African American historians and activists, especially during the 20th century, celebrated Kush and the Black Pharaohs as symbols of African greatness. Today, the story of Kush continues to inspire artists, writers, and educators who seek to reclaim Africa's historical legacy. Lessons from Kush. The rise and fall of Kush offer lessons that resonate across time. Adaptability is key. Kush thrived by blending African traditions with foreign influences. From Egypt to Rome, trade and technology drive power. Control of trade routes and mastery of iron smelting made Meroë a powerhouse. Environmental care matters. Overuse of natural resources, such as wood for iron smelting, may have contributed to the kingdom's decline. Cultural identity endures. Even after its political power waned, Kushite culture influenced later Nubian kingdoms and modern Sudan. Kushite treasures and museums. Artifacts from Kushite sites are displayed in museums worldwide, including the National Museum of Sudan in Khartoum, which houses statues, jewelry, and royal artifacts. The British Museum in London, which exhibits statues of the Black Pharaohs and Meroitic pottery. The Cairo Museum, which preserves the Victory Stela of King Pi. These objects, often adorned with intricate carvings in gold, reflect the wealth and artistry of Kushite civilization. The future of Kushite studies. Modern technologies are unlocking new secrets about Kush, 3D scanning and digital mapping, used to document and preserve pyramids and temples. Satellite imaging, helping archaeologists discover previously unknown sites buried under sand. Linguistic research. Scholars are using computational methods to decode the Meroitic language. These efforts promise to expand our understanding of Kush and its role in world history. Kush's place in world history. The Kingdom of Kush stands alongside other great ancient civilizations, Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and China, as a cradle of human achievement. Its history challenges the Eurocentric focus of traditional world history by highlighting Africa's central role in the ancient world. Unlike some ancient empires, Kush's influence was not based solely on conquest, but on a rich tapestry of trade, cultural exchange, and diplomacy. Its rulers were statesmen, warriors, and patrons of the arts, whose legacies continue to inspire awe. The eternal legacy of Kush. The story of Kush is one of resilience, innovation, and cultural fusion. From its earliest days at Kerma, through the grandeur of Napata and the Black Pharaohs of the 25th Dynasty, to the industrial might of Meroë, Kush forged a unique path that bridged Africa and the Mediterranean. Although the kingdom fell over 1,600 years ago, its memory lives on in the pyramids that rise from the sands of Sudan, in the legends of warrior queens like Amenarina's, and the artifacts that reveal a civilization of builders, traders, and innovators. Kush reminds us that the history of humanity is far richer and more interconnected than we often realize. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Sweet dream.